with the Indonesian government policy of a tax on citizens in West Papua.
The Honourable Tony Ryle.
Chairman. Mr Chairman, thank you very much for the opportunity to take a call in support of our colleagues. I think at a very important time for the world as they consider the very significant challenges arising from debt. What has to be remembered, particularly about this debate and this reference to the government's mixed ownership model, is that it has to be seen within a wider context and a wider plan that the government has in order to help control our nation's debt and continue to invest and grow our economy. And these decisions are being made at very difficult times internationally. Just in the last few hours, it's being reported that both Spain and Italy are likely to be bailed out to the tune of £600 billion from the European monetary resources in order to support them. Ireland is expecting another bailout from the fund, and it's been reported just in the last 24 hours that the Russian government itself, is putting aside $40 billion, £40 billion, US dollars rather, as the euro crisis buffer in that area. So things are very unstable in many parts of the world. In Germany, 40 economists have told Chancellor Merkel, that she should actually break away and establish a northern euro. So look, this just tells you about this uncertainty that's happening internationally and the consequence of not controlling debt, which is the reason why the government wants to do that. But what opportunities are there for New Zealand with that uncertainty in Europe? Well, it certainly means that a number of investors here at home will be more interested in investing in New Zealand, I am sure, because of that uncertainty. And what we know, that in times of uncertainty, people look towards infrastructural assets for the assurance that provides. So while we do have this very uncertain international situation, New Zealand's proximity to Australia and China is good for our future prospects, and also it should indicate a changing environment for investment prospects both here in New Zealand as well. I think it's pretty clear that the government is making a lot of progress in explaining to the public of New Zealand what the mixed ownership model is about. It's about controlling our debt and making sure that we're in a position where we can invest into the future. And it works pretty straightforward. We hope to release about $5 to $7 billion over a 3 to 5 year period from the mixed ownership model. That money will go into a future investment fund which will be available for investment in important infrastructural assets like schools, roads and hospitals. The government's been upfront from January 2011 that this was our proposal. We've had a piece of legislation that's gone through a select committee process. There's been no urgency to date involved in this process. We've been quite clear. But that stands in absolute contrast to the lies and deceit of the 1987 general election, where a party did not campaign on the fact that they would go on to sell $10 billion of public assets to the highest bidder. There was no talk about everyday New Zealanders taking a stake. There was no talk publicly about selling it off to foreigners and fey rich white. None of that in the 1987 general election. It was kept quiet. Mr Goff never told anybody. Mr Mallard never told anybody. Annette King never told anybody. Mike Moore never told anybody. No one in the Labour Party told anyone that they were going to sell these public assets, which is why there's so much suspicion about this, because people think that it's going to be what it was like when Labour sold $10 billion worth of assets to the highest selling foreign interest they possibly could get. Our government, on the other hand, has been completely open and transparent. We have been upfront since January 2011 about our plan to do this as part of a very sensible strategy to control debt and get our country back into the black. Because if you're heading from where we are now, which is about $53 billion, to $72 billion a year in debt, there is an imperative that we take action, and this is part of a very sensible, prudent response by our Prime Minister to make sure that our country can face the difficult times ahead as we work together to deal with the debt.
The time for this debate has expired. I call on Government Order of the Day number